Good morning. This is The-Crucible of Condemnation. For those of you who know me, thank you. I know it's been a long time since I've made a video, but most people may see me and never have known me, and I'm not really trying to get famous. I'm not trying to get a whole bunch of views. If you view me, cool. Not, oh well. I know everyone's going a little bit stir crazy right now, especially when it comes to the fact that they've been sitting at home due to this virus outbreak, this pandemic. And I'm not going to go into conspiracy theories on any of that because that's a whole different topic. But the indeed goal is to slow the spread, and those who don't know or understand that this virus can affect and does affect mostly those with a immune system that is not as effective at fighting off say cold or flu or anything like that. If your immune system is not effective, then you will not be able to do such things as fight off the virus. So, and say for example that you have asthma, which is actually a common thing, especially within children, which is a respiratory disease in which you have asthma attacks, which you start to cough because the lungs aren't able to get enough oxygen, and those are triggered via all sorts of different agents, say pollen, dust, actually getting a cold, like actually getting the cold virus. So if you get that coronavirus, what it does is attacks the lungs. And if you don't know, the actual coronavirus currently is called SARS-CoV-2, which actually original SARS-CoV had an outbreak in 2003. Also, this virus acts in a similar way because there was about 8,578 cases, and the mortality rate was at a 9%, which is give or take what we're about now. We're at about a 5% mortality rate, 5 to 8% mortality rate, and a 10 to 12% recovery rate. So with that in mind, that's what that is. But the coronavirus is currently being called nCoV, which is a novel coronavirus strain. Now, why do I mention all this? Because not a lot of people understand it. It is good to use precautions. It is good to follow the guidelines. There is no governmental conspiracy. Like I said, I'm not going to get into that. That's a whole different idea. It's a whole different video if I ever decide to make it. However, I want to explain to you a couple of things. One, the virus is able to be transmitted via cough, even if you're asymptomatic. The virus has another way of transmitting, which is through the oils in your hands. The virus itself is hydrophobic, meaning it bonds with oils, but it does not bond with water. So, that in mind, you can use different things to clean, such as acetic acid, which is mostly found in vinegar. And actually, if you combine a little bit of vinegar, clear is better, because if it's clear, that means it's been distilled and is actually closer to its purest form. So you can mix a little bit of that with some bleach, and that actually acidizes the bleach, meaning it takes it and makes it more acidic. Acidic means that it's more likely to gain an electron, and not gain an electron, but gain a hydrogen ion, and a base is more likely to propel a hydrogen ion. It might be the opposite way, but from what I remember reading, it's acids gain, bases take. So with that in mind, that's how you could clean it. And I know everyone's sitting at home, they're going stir crazy. You have protests that are happening right now. I'm not really a fan of those, but I'm not going to get rid of them, nor should I say that, oh, we shouldn't allow these people to do it because you're here in America. So those that are here in America, you do have the right, freedom to assemble. So I'm not going to try to sit and say and take that away. Now, if you start trying to endanger others, that does become a problem, but I'll discuss that at a different time. The next thing I would like to discuss is that after this is finally over, which let's just say it ends in about another month, right? Because we're, May 5th today? So, with that in mind, if it ends in a month, there's going to be the summer for political ideas. The political race is on for Donald Trump and Joe Biden. I don't like either candidate, and the reason I do not like either candidate is due to the fact that I sit in the middle. I sometimes lean left, I sometimes lean right. It depends upon the idea that's being pushed. For example, Obamacare is a good idea, but there are problems with it, and I can see that there are definitely some holes in that bill. I won't get into the holes because that's, again, I'd have to spend a lot more time researching it. I agree with the idea of it, but there's some problems with the way it's been implemented. Now, I lean a little bit right when it comes to immigration. Not that I don't want anyone to come here, but I would rather you try to come here via the system, because there is a system in place in which that can happen. Now, in some countries, it needs to be vastly improved. I do agree with that. So I can see both sides of the coin. I'm not trying to be a dick. I want to have an even, unbiased, bipartisan view, because at the time, we're all in this shit. So no matter what puppet, or not puppet, but no matter what person you put in the White House, you still need to act together. And granted, majority rule doesn't mean it's best for everybody, but there's always a way to adapt and survive. Okay? Now, the next thing is that, like I said, with all these political things, you're going to have the slander campaign of the century. They're going to slander each other. It's just going to happen. Every Democratic platform has said, I can beat Trump, and then half of them dropped out of the race. All of them except for Biden, apparently. Now, I don't know if that's because of the Democratic Party or whatever, but the Republican Party is also chock full of shit. But Trump's already president, so it's more likely it's that he's just gonna, we're just gonna try to reelect him because he's already there, then try to put someone else to run against him to try to get in. So it's not likely. It's much more likely that they'll put in there for reelection. Now, remember Charlottesville 3 years ago, where where there was those groups of people, both groups, and extreme right and extreme left, and the idea that they were fighting for was they did not want the statue, which was a Confederate statue that goes to history, to be removed. And I honestly agree that, again, that statue shouldn't have been moved. It's history. People say, oh, it's racist history. History is history. If you really want to be it's racist history or slave history or whatever, why don't you get rid of the pyramids of Egypt? Get it? Because those were supposedly, if we go on the Bible's thing, that it was slaves. But even though the Egyptian writings say that they were actually workers that were paid to work on it. So a lot of things have been built with slave labor. So if that's the case, you should tear down practically all of society, because all of society at one point was built with slave labor. So if that's the point, and you're saying that statue, is a representation of slavery, then there are a lot more monuments that you would need to take down. But we're not getting on the monument. History is important to see it, to read about it, learn about it, and learn each perspective on it. Left, right, middle. That is important. So for me, I like talking to people on each side of the spectrum, simply due to the fact that I want to get both points of view. Whether I agree with you or not has nothing to do with it. If I don't agree with you, so what? The point of the matter is that I get your side, I get his side, and then I decide what I want to do. I decide what points I agree with, and I decide what points I disagree with. That is how we should do things. We should not just jump on the identity politics train, because if you just identify with something and in reality it has a core ideology which you do not believe in, then you have some problems. Most people that vote Republican are Christian. That's just common thing. Most of the people that are older, conservative, Christian, that is just a common trend. It doesn't say everybody is that, but a majority of their base is that. That's not a problem. That's just statistical fact. Now, you should not let your belief in any kind of religion or ideology affect your judgment when you're actually trying to come up with ideas in order to better all of society. But due to these ideas which are taught, like racism is taught, sexism is taught, all of that are learned behaviors. All of these discriminatory actions are learned. They can be unlearned, but the older you are, the harder it will become to unlearn it, because you will already be within that way of thinking. And since that way of thinking is mostly what you've known for most of your life, you would not likely be willing to get rid of those thoughts. So that's how that works. Now, the reason I'm saying all this is because those groups will come together once again, and they will probably most likely, if they come together, they'll have violent clashes, because both want to blame the other side. Neither wants to sit down and talk. Neither wants to accept the disagreements or even try to confer the ideology. And then Antifa, what they'll do is they'll dox people, which I don't feel is right, but at the same time, it does show you who they are. So, good and bad, but not really. And, because, like, if someone else put their personal information out there, they might not be happy about that. Especially if it's something that's damaging. Now, I get it. You don't want people to produce this ideology or to have this ideology. That's fine, but battle them at the ideological level. Talk to them at the ideological level. Do not get angry, because if you get angry or if you show violence, you actually bolster their point. And that goes for both sides. That's exactly what I'm trying to tell you. Both sides are going to say that they hit me first, or they did this, or they did that. It's always a they. It's never I. You need to have your own perspective. I don't take place in any of those marches, and people are going to say, "Oh, well, you're a Trump supporter." No, I'm not. I don't support him, and I'm also not against him. Like I said, I'm in the middle. So we need to actually all come together as a country with all of our differences, and we need to understand that the differences are not us. You are not, this one thing. Because guess what? That's called a stigma. And that stigma that you immediately associate with someone is very bad. Very, very bad. And the last representation I'll give you of stigma is that if someone hears the word Trump supporter, they think racist, Nazi, Klansman, which is kind of fucked up, because there probably are people that are Trump supporters that are not any of that. Also, if you hear leftist or someone who's a Democrat, you often probably think, or even actually if you hear the word immigrant, now we'll use that stigma, because that one's the easiest one. This is the easier target. You will often probably think someone who is Hispanic, and the reason you will think that is because Trump's saying that especially a time ago, that Mexicans are bad, they bring crime, they're rapists, by saying that statement, you stigmatize them, and you hear that, not hear, but you immediately put that thought into other people's heads that they are that. So people have this ideology of it, when in reality, that's not what they are. Not everyone is what the stigma says. Well, that's all I have for now. This has been the Crucible of Condemnation. You have a good